Underground is the 6th episode after the two-part start of the series kicked things off, but already there are problems that need addressing, food to be specific. Taylor suggests meeting with the Genii, simple farmers who could help keep Atlantis from descending into cannibalism, so it looks like it's time for a trade mission. As you can see, the locals aren't exactly peasant level, they're dressed more like the fashionable side of Amish. The guy's a little distrustful, though.
My daughter, Sora.
Must be very proud.
She's betrothed.
And I can see how that fact makes your face light up, Jebediah. After a bit of discussion, Taylor convinces them to bring the team to their village, but right before the titles, it seems there's more going on, as he sends some kind of comm signal to others about them. They obviously have more advanced technology than they're letting on. Or this is a very clever red herring, and this guy is just a crazy man who talks to his wrist. That would be a fun twist. After the titles, they meet with Cohen, played by Cole Meany, who was not as impressed with their drugs as everyone assumed they'd be. Although perhaps it was because the last person making that offer gave them pot, and the last thing you want when you're worried about starvation is having the munchies. They'd need to have more farmland, which isn't easy because clearing 300-year-old stumps isn't easy. Unless... My favorite raccoon lived in that stump, you dirty... Yeah, I forgot. We don't have a prime directive that stops us from giving primitive farmers explosives to play with. I don't know how to feel about that, but it sounds awesome all around. Cowan, he agrees that this is a good move, and he wants the C4 and the medicine, much to Shepard's annoyance, but when you think a moment, it's only reasonable. The C4 will be used to clear land to grow the crops that Atlantis needs, not the Genii. They don't need that extra land. All they would be doing otherwise is paying for the privilege of clearing and farming land for somebody else. So, yeah, it does make sense that they want something more. But still, Dr. Weir is not really impressed with Shepard's negotiations, and at this point, it's either a yay or a nay from her. No more room to haggle, so reluctantly she gives the okay. And hey, it's just in time for the harvest celebration. Tonight we're going to party like it's 1799.
Moonshine?
I thought you were man enough.
I'm going blind! Meanwhile, Shepard has managed to get himself and Rodney lost on the way back to the Genii village from the Stargate, but Rodney starts picking up some strange readings.
Define strange.
You don't know what strange means?
What strange means, Rodney.
Weird, freakish,
Just
odd.
trying to determine whether it's worth getting off the route back to the village.
Sometimes this show is like Star Trek the Abbott and Costello generation. It's radiation and coming from some old shack. Inside, there's a hatch to, as you might have guessed from the title, the Genii hidden underground lair. Once inside, they detect signs of neutron radiation, a huge door, and some kind of bat cave. Learn a new word, it's good to practice it. As you can see, they're quickly captured, and Cowan and a few of the others are informed, alas, cutting their time at the harvest celebration short, and I was so looking forward to the pig wrestling contest. Those who win get the choice to either eat it or have sex with it. Not both, because, we're gentlemen here. Cowan soon arrives to meet Shepard and Rodney, his uniform making clear that either there's more going on here, or the Amish have their own Special Forces unit. Taylor and Ford start to get a bad vibe from all of this, even from Uncle Jesse, and when they try to leave, they're hit with a bullshit excuse about a wraith ship, which is about as convincing as saying Bigfoot's riding by on a bicycle. It's just buying time while Cowan figures out what to do with them. Normally, they'd just have been shot.
In which case, more of our people would show up and question our disappearance.
We would simply tell them the wraith took you, with no evidence to the contrary. They would believe us.
Well, we'll say the wraith took you! Ha! Chick and mate. The only reason they're still alive is that they need the C4, and not for blowing up stumps. There's a lot of factors in play, so they'll be bringing Taylor and Ford in, but with a stop along the way to change into their uniforms because the dress code is more important than being punctual. When they're finally brought in, Cowan explains the reason for the strict kill policy. The only defense they have against the Wraith is that this place is a secret. The regular cullings by the Wraith have kept virtually the whole galaxy at a relatively primitive state of technology, since it disrupts social and technological advancement, as well as serving the Wraith's goals by keeping them less of a threat. By keeping this place a secret, that disruption is minimized, allowing the Genii to continue to work towards a long-term solution to the Wraith threat.
The Genii were once a great confederation of planets.
The Confederation, was toppled once the Wraith descended on the galaxy, but they've been working here, and now are on the cusp of the atomic age, hence the readings. Luckily, Rodney is a super genius to set them on the right path. First, by saying that the radiation is actually bad for you. You really should stop showering in it and maybe do something about your three-headed babies. The more he says, the more Cowan is willing to accept Shepard's offer of an alliance against the Wraith. They hold a banquet to make it official, where Rodney explains a few of the technical bits that you need to know to complete the A-bomb, which is the answer to all of their problems, as atomic bombs usually are.
With your help, before the next culling, we plan to vaporize the Wraith as they sleep.
Yeah, ever heard the expression, no plan survives first contact with the enemy? Well, funny story. Seems we had first contact with the enemy. Taylor spills the beans about what happened, and Cowan's kind of pissed off at how their carefully laid plans have gone to shit thanks to their new allies. But with Shepard's discussion of the puddle jumpers and Rodney's ability to make an A-bomb in his sleep, they're willing to continue with the alliance. But time is a factor. It's not just the people who will be lost to the culling, it's the radiation that will give away their bunker and cost them their only hope for victory. Their hope is based on a data device rescued from a downed Wraith dart, which they've eventually managed to access thanks to... oh, talk about radiation. This thing has detailed information on a single Wraith ship, including where its data core is, with likely info on the rest of the Wraith. And once we know that, we're set, because we'll know stuff and have surprise. And since knowing is half the battle and surprise is half the battle, then that's the whole battle. So imagine how much of the battle we'll have if we have an A-bomb in there too. I mean, that's going to be like 200% of the battle right there. Dr. Weir is a bit peeved when they get back and reveal that this has escalated from trading for food to giving them explosives to teaching them how to enter the nuclear age. Next step will be helping them design their own Death Star, I'm sure of it. She agrees to at least the joint operation to invade the warship using a cloaked jumper, but we'll have to see if we'll get Oppenheimer on the Genii. The Genii seem somewhat skeptical themselves, as their discussion with Taylor reveals, although when you show up in your invisible spaceship, you do tend to instill a little awe.
I should be going with you.
It's a good chance we could end up in a firefight.
Sora is a skilled fighter, an expert marksman, Lieutenant Ford.
And most important of all, she's betrothed. They follow the intel, and sure enough, there's a Wraith ship waiting, and seemingly dormant, although that didn't stop the last one from waking up, did it? Their group is small, 5 plus Ford left guarding the ship, but they run into a snag, cocooned victims of the Wraith. And being the good guys, our heroes have a hard time ignoring them if they would ask for help. So Taylor and Tyrus will have to deal with them. Sure enough, one comes around and pleads for help, only Tyrus insists that they can't do that, or the Wraith wouldn't know that someone was there. Which really doesn't matter, since I'm sure they'll notice that McKay has cut through an area of the wall to open the door, all while Cowan watches with approval. Hey, usually people aren't as loud as firearms, pal. Sure enough, the gunfire draws a guard, and Tyrus gets shot, and with more guards, Taylor has no choice but to leave him behind, even if he might still be alive, which we actually don't know. The rest of them escape with the data, but not exactly a welcoming return back to the Genii gate. At Cowan's signal, Genii troops flood out and ambush them.
She killed Tyrus.
No.
By leaving him to die, you may just as well have killed him yourself.
Interesting, considering you did that to the people on that ship.
He shot the man we tried to save.
It was a mistake to try and save anyone.
So we learned from that and didn't try to save Tyrus. What are you complaining about? Cowan plans to let them live but rob them blind, including taking the jumper, but Shepard has a counteroffer. How about I don't annihilate the lot of you with my other invisible ships? Oh, and I'll take the data too. How you like that, Mr. Russian Army Surplus Store?
You do not want to make an enemy of the Genii.
You know what? Same here.
That I don't want to make an enemy of the Genii? You know what I mean! And it turns out the data reveals that the Genii plan was a bust anyway. There weren't a handful of ships, there were dozens, probably 60 or more. Too many to nuke simultaneously, especially with some of them on the move. Oh, and since Shepard never did get around to getting them some food, someone else had to go and make a deal with the Manarians for some. And all without promising them atomic weaponry. Imagine that. Underground gets a stamp of must-see. The Genii will become a recurring presence, as we'll see next month, and this episode shows how this animosity came about. There are faults on both sides here. Shepard and McKay did go poking around for no reason other than to satisfy their curiosity, and the Atlantis team is responsible for awakening the Wraith forces across the galaxy and foiling the timetables of the Genii and those like them who counted on that extra time to mount a defense. And the Genii shoot intruders on sight policy really is no different than a deadly forces authorized policy that exists for some restricted locations. Though I'm not in the military, so I'm guessing that might be a last resort as opposed to the first response option, but the problem here really is that the Genii situation has left them with overwhelming paranoia. Any outsider is a threat to their very existence and any hope of eliminating their mortal enemy. And when you live that way all your life in a society that is built around that idea, then things become clear-cut. You don't trust outsiders because you can't afford to trust outsiders. You sacrifice the lives of outsiders out of a deep-seated terror of what their actions could do to harm you. The acts of the Atlantis team would probably at least ruffle the feathers of anyone else. With the Genii, it was more than they were willing to risk. Not saying they were right, just trying to see how they reached this point. They are humans, after all, and their ideology is founded ultimately from their mortal dread based upon bitter experience. Regarding Taylor, it's been suggested that she was unreasonable here trying to rescue that person in the cocoon. Maybe. But it should be noted that we are only 6 episodes since she herself was a prisoner of the Wraith just like these people were, waiting to be fed upon. So it's understandable why she would feel compelled to save them the same way that she herself was saved. Likewise, Shepard's own hesitation is that his rescue plan is what led to this situation, putting the Atlantis expedition at risk and awakening a threat to the galaxy. He's no doubt worried about accidentally doing that again. The episode has a lot packed in, moving quickly throughout its run, so that it's only in retrospect that you see the brevity given to each part. That's not to say it's a thrill ride, but it is a solid episode and helps to establish Atlantis as its own show with its own issues. And yes, we'll see that crop up next month with more of the Genii in The Storm and The Eye.
Guess the tava beans are off the table.